And space is its own kind of fun. But keeping astronauts fit and healthy is a serious business. Michelle Clinch is responsible for what they eat.
We're making spaghetti with meat sauce.
Space meals begin just like ours do, with a trip to the supermarket.
Thank you.
But the similarities stop there. Spaghetti and meat sauce is just one of the 250 things on the space station menu. Each portion is meticulously calibrated.
We have a database where we maintain the nutritional content of all our products, calories, fat, protein, carbohydrate, things like that.
But the most important calculation is what things weigh. That's because it costs $10,000 for every pound blasted off to the astronauts. So NASA adopted a reduction technique, also used by the military.
Freeze drying removes a high percentage of the moisture, so typically when we freeze dry our products, we take them down to about 3%.
Each portion now weighs just 1 ounce. Cost to transport, $660. 1,300 miles away, and the orbital Cygnus resupply module is being loaded with the freeze-dried food. And it's time for a few last-minute food luxuries.
These are the tortillas. They're very popular on orbit.
After a daily routine of freeze-dried meals, a fresh piece of fruit is a welcome relief, well worth its weight in gold.
As you can see, we're only sending 3 apples, so you may think that's unfair because we have 6 people on orbit. They may have to share.
This very precious cargo is one of the last things to be loaded onto the rocket.
It's on its way.
3, 2, 1. Less than a kilometer away from us now.
2 days later, Cygnus docks with the space station.
We're getting ready to birth the Cygnus 1 vehicle. All right. Looks really good. Perfect. Perfect. Nice. Bonus food.
Including some surprise treats from their families.
Wow. Look at that. Tortilla. The real tortillas. Look at that. Real tortillas. Pours in. Wow. Oh my goodness gracious. The greatest hot dog relish in the history of man. Oh my gosh, my wife didn't tell me about this.
Hello, and welcome to Node 1. In the boxes you see here, we keep our food on the International Space Station, and specifically the food that we are currently eating. And in our logistics module, Leonardo, where I was just now, we keep our supplies. We keep them in soft containers like this one, which we call bobs. And this one is a very special bob for me because it contains my bonus food, the food that I chose myself based on my preference and my taste. This one, for example, is one of my absolute favorites. It's quinoa salad with mackerel. Mackerel is a great source of healthy proteins, but also of healthy fats. Those fats that our body absolutely needs to stay healthy and in good shape. On board we have different kinds of fish, which are great sources of healthy fat. For example, thanks to our Russian colleagues, we have sturgeon. In my bonus food, I also took sources of healthy fats that I can eat for a snack. I love avocado, for example, so I took it in form of guacamole that I can spread on my bread. Or I also love dry fruit, so I have almonds and nuts. And I didn't forget to take olive oil. And I can tell you, our rehydrated veggies not only taste a lot better with olive oil, but they're also a lot healthier. So I hope you will put the right rocket fuel into your body, starting with the right types of fat. And remember, eating healthy is not rocket science.
don't know the reason behind it, but your taste buds change when you get to space. So the things that you like on Earth and you just can't get enough of, you've got enough of when you get to space. So there's something about your taste buds. Don't know what it is. However, aromas, you don't get enough of it, partly because of the way things are packaged. And coffee, for instance, has this smell that you kind of consume while you're eating the food, but it's in a package that has a straw and you can't smell anything. So it still didn't stop me from drinking it, but you just couldn't smell it. And same with all the other foods. They come in a little package, and so you don't really smell it very well. And you'd miss that. When you come back to Earth, you find out just how important smell is when you're eating food. So, how does the space station smell? You know, this is a good question because in general, the space station smells like nothing. It's clean, except if you're in Node 3 and you're working out on the ARED machine, and all of a sudden you smell something that you think is coming from the WHC, but it's actually, which is our space potty, but it's actually our Russian colleagues back in the service module open up a can of beef, and it gets into the air circulation system, and it makes its first stop in Node 3. And so at first you're like, oh, what is that? And oh, wait, it's lunchtime. And then it's a much better smell into your brain. You know, mealtime in space can be a lot of fun. It's especially dinner time. At the end of this long day where 6 people, 6 little pink bodies in space, working all day long, and we're rarely together working unless it's something very unique. We're all off doing our own thing. And to come together at the end of the day when you know that you've signed off with mission control and you're in that latest research news. And don't forget to download our fabulous app on your mobile device. Until next time, stay with us. Off the Earth, for the Earth. I think it's time to eat.
We leave the moon, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return.
You probably dreamed of this.
Liftoff on Apollo 11.
You probably replayed this moment 1,000 times.
Four wheels off the ground air.
You probably imagined the awe-inspiring, indescribable rush of the ride. You probably celebrated the miraculous, cheered the momentous, and mourned the shocking. You probably still dream of what could be. We did. We do. And while many thought we were through, no. We've been learning, we've been building, we've been training. And now, it's time. Because the next frontier is not just for the next generation. It's for this generation. It's for me, and it's for you. For everything we still dream about. We go as Artemis.
They are the best of the best. They represent the best of humanity and our most fervent hopes for the future. No pressure.
Folks used to tell kids when I was growing up, reach for the moon. But that's not the objective anymore. Now we've got to revise it to reach for Mars.
And what I'm so excited going forward with Artemis is that when the next astronaut lands on the moon, maybe one of these men and women, and by the way, as the father of 2 daughters, I could not be more excited that we will land a woman on the moon and bring her home safely.
Spacewalkers resume battery upgrades aboard the space station, a post-flight visit from a couple of recently returned space station astronauts, and a key piece of SLS hardware moves closer to a critical test series. A few of the stories to tell you about this week at NASA. On January 15th, our Jessica Meir and Christina Cook ventured outside the International Space Station for a spacewalk, the first of 2 they will conduct this month, to complete the battery upgrades started on the station last year. Meir and Cook are scheduled to be back outside the station on January 20th. Then, if all goes as planned, on January 25th, our Andrew Morgan and Luca Parmitano of ESA are expected to conduct the station's third spacewalk this month. On that outing, the pair will finish the installation of the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer's new cooling equipment that began late last year. Former space station crew members Anne McClain and Nick Hague were in the Washington, D.C. area for several post-flight appearances, including a short presentation for employees at NASA headquarters. The pair also appeared on a segment of the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum's What's New in Aerospace. McClain and Hague spent more than 6 months in space and conducted a combined 5 spacewalks. The first Space Launch System rocket core stage for our Artemis program arrived at our Stennis Space Center in Mississippi on January 12th aboard the agency's Pegasus barge. Engineers there will use the center's B-2 test stand to conduct a series of integrated tests with the core stage, known as the Green Run Test Series, to verify that it is ready for launch ahead of our uncrewed Artemis 1 mission around the moon and back. We released new imagery of a test at our Glenn Research Center with Viper, the mobile lunar robot being developed to search for water ice at the moon's south pole. The golf cart-sized rover will be delivered to the moon through our Commercial Lunar Payload Services initiative before we land the first woman and next man on the moon in 2024. On January 15th, NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration provided the annual release of global temperature data. Independent analyses by both agencies found that Earth's global surface temperatures in 2019 ranked second warmest only to those of 2016 and continued the planet's long-term warming trend. The past 5 years have been the warmest years on record since modern record-keeping began in 1880. NASA uses the unique vantage point of space to observe Earth and to better understand the processes that affect our home planet. That's what's up this week at NASA. For more on these and other stories, follow us on the web at nasa.gov/twan.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. We're ready.
Fort Worth Academy, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Fort Worth Academy. How do you hear me?
Fort Worth Academy, we have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Hi, I'm Lauren Parker with the kindergarten through 8th grade students of Fort Worth Academy. We're so excited to talk with you as we celebrate Space Week.
Hi, I'm Blythe from 1st grade. How does it feel to bounce around in space?
Well, it's a lot of fun. In fact, we thought we'd do a little demonstration for you. So as you can see, it's a lot of fun.
Hi, I'm Ellie from 5th grade. What would happen if you tried to play with slime in space?
That is a great question, and I hear that you guys have been making some slime as well. Here in space, there wouldn't be any gravity to pull that slime down in a long tendril, so actually it would probably just ball up in a ball, and if you wanted to slime somebody, you'd actually have to make it like a projectile and fire it at them. So it'd be a little different, but it'd probably still be just as fun.
Hi, I'm Lourdes from 8th grade. What role does the International Space Station play in the process of building a sustained presence on the moon?
Well, as I think you're probably already aware, it is our goal at NASA currently to go back to the moon and eventually go on to Mars. So all that we're doing up here on the International Space Station, a lot of the data and experiments that we've been conducting for decades now are providing us with a wealth of scientific data, especially looking at things like human physiology and medicine, what happens to the body after long-duration spaceflight. We have learned many lessons from this sustained presence that we have up here on the space station. The space station also serves as a sort of proving ground and test bed for other pieces of hardware. One of those important things is life support systems. Of course, life support systems inside the space station, in our spacecraft, even in our spacesuits, are all very relevant to that future exploration as well.
Hi, I'm Kason from 8th grade. What is it like knowing that you have an opportunity few people will have in their lives of living and working in space?
Well, we view it as a great honor, and we view it as our responsibility to share it with others. We know that we're very privileged to be here, and we have a huge team supporting us on the ground in order to enable this to happen. And so we like to do events just like this to reach out and show you the magic of being in space, but also the benefits to people on Earth, as well as our opportunities to explore further in the universe as a result of our experience up here.
Hi, I'm Kai from 5th grade. When you spill something like water on your clothes, do they get wet or does the water just sit on top?
Sounds like another great opportunity for a demonstration of what might happen. So we're making a big ball of water here, and you can see the forces in the water want to stay in a sphere, and it wants to stick to anything it can, to include the straw. We'll make another ball here, and I'll let it hit my shirt, and you can see exactly what would happen. Just like the water wants to stick to itself, stick to the straw, it also will stick to my shirt.
But it does still get things wet as well. As you can see with Drew, if we squirt him with water, he still gets wet just like he would on the ground. It is interesting, though, some of the fabrics they provide us help us keep clean. So some of the pants, for example, that we have are a little bit more hydrophobic. They repel the water, and so it'll bead up on there, and you can wipe it off if you spill something inadvertently, since we do wear these pants for quite a long time.
Hi, I am Charlie from kindergarten. How have you celebrated holidays and other special events in space?
Sometimes we do like to remind ourselves of our normal life on the ground, even though, as we talked about, we're so lucky to be up here. So it is important for us psychologically, especially on these long duration missions, to recognize those things that we normally do on the ground, like holidays. So we've actually had several holidays together during this mission, some really big ones. We had Thanksgiving together, we had Hanukkah and Christmas up here during the holiday season, and we also had New Year's. So what we did, we gathered together with our crewmates, the three of us, but also our commander, Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano, and two of our Russian colleagues as well, cosmonauts that are up here with us and part of our crew. So we usually gather together and have a great meal together. We spend some time sometimes playing music, talking about, things on the ground. We gave each other presents on Christmas. So we do it much like you do on the ground. It's just even more special up here.
Hi, I'm Ella from 8th grade. How have your previous leadership experiences prepared you for your stay in space?
I love that question because before I came to the International Space Station, and before I was selected as an astronaut, I was and still am an Army officer, where we talk about leadership a lot. But what I've found as an astronaut, the important quality is being a good teammate, which means to be able to move between being a leader and being a follower very readily. On one day, one person may be in charge of it, but the next day somebody else may be in charge, and you need to then fall in and become a follower just the same. And so that's an important quality of a good teammate, is being able to move back and forth through those roles and respect whoever is in charge and their decisions. It's a quality that it takes time to develop, and one of the most important qualities in a good team member.
Hi, I'm Isaac from 1st grade. What made you want to be an astronaut?
Well, when I was even younger than you are, if you can believe it, I first decided that I wanted to be an astronaut. And sometimes I'm not even sure what made me want to be one, because it's just all that I can ever remember wanting to be. I think that I love the idea of exploring my world. I loved playing in the woods. I loved going to the ocean. I loved looking at the night sky. And those things reminded me that there was so much more to see and discover out there in the world. And from there, I just kept pursuing the things that I loved and I was passionate about, and I kept working hard. And eventually I found myself living that dream out and being able to be an astronaut exploring in space.
Hi, I'm Ido from 8th grade. With all the new technology that we have developed since our last missions to the moon, what new experiments will be done and what advances will be made during the Artemis program?
That is a great question in a time when people have noticed we have been to the moon before, and so you might think, why would we go back? There's so much more to discover there. There's both science that can be done on the moon in terms of planetary science. Like, for example, the moon is almost like the Rosetta Stone of our entire solar system's formation. within the moon's geology, we can understand how the solar system formed, which informs how our own planet formed and the rest of the planet. So there's a lot of scientific relevance in going back to the moon. But also, it's a stepping stone for going farther into our solar system, like onward to Mars. And in Mars, we can discover and answer really huge questions, such as, is there life elsewhere outside of Earth? And things like that really mean a lot to all of humanity. So there's multiple reasons that we are heading back to the moon, and we're doing so soon and to stay.
Hi, I'm Mahan from 3rd grade. What does your daily schedule look like, and what do you do in your free time?
Well, that's an interesting question because, you know, we are up here for a long period of time, and our time up here is very precious, and there's a lot invested in our time, and so every moment is scheduled. But our day looks probably very much like a day on Earth in terms of we still need to sleep and we still need to eat, and we spend time in our day exercising. But we also spend a fair amount of our time doing maintenance of the space station. In fact, just yesterday we had to do, Jessica and Christina were on a spacewalk where they were doing maintenance of the space station outside the space station in space suits. And so we have had a couple of spacewalks during our time up here on board. And then we're also conducting scientific experiments on a daily basis. We always have science that we need to tend to, and we're running the experiments for scientists on the ground. So our days stay very packed. They're very full. Every hour is accounted for.
Hi, I'm Afif from 2nd grade. How do you use robots on the International Space Station?
Well, one of the most important pieces of robotic hardware that we have up here on the International Space Station is the Canadarm, or the robotic arm that's on the outside of the space station. It's this really large robotic arm that can be moved around to help people on spacewalks. So, for example, in the spacewalk that Drew mentioned yesterday, the arm was actually holding some batteries for us that Christina and I were getting and moving from one location to the next, basically in order to upgrade the batteries for the space station, going from an older technology to new lithium-ion batteries, just like you use in all your devices on the ground. Sometimes the robotic arm moves astronauts as well outside, and sometimes it moves things around even without us on it, just moving different pieces of hardware, even in the beginning during the construction of the space station, moving entire modules around in order to configure things on the International Space Station. So that's probably the biggest, maybe not your conventional idea of a robot, but we have had some other robots on the space station too. We had Robonaut, who was up here previously and will be coming up here again to demonstrate some other applications that do have relevancy to future exploration as well. We have a small robot just right over here, Astrobi, that we'll bring off the wall here. And have you guys ever done? I actually haven't participated in the Astrobi experiments, but Christina might be able to tell a little bit about that.
Yes, these are called our Astrobi robots, and they are going to be used autonomously to perform little tasks around station. For example, finding items that people need to gather, taking pictures of different configurations, and other tasks like that. And the really neat thing about this robot is that it can find its way around actually by using cameras in real time, and it has the entire station mapped out, so it can tell where it is and where it needs to go and just work on its own. So it's been really fun bringing these robots into stations since I've been here.
Hi, I'm Alex from 7th grade. What is an interesting experiment you have worked on?
I'll tell you about one experiment that Jessica and I do together. It's called Fluid Shifts, which studies how the fluids in our bodies, to include our blood, change how they flow and how they operate inside our bodies in the absence of gravity. And it's an interesting experiment because it also involves our Russian colleagues as well, and we use a device called Chibis, which tries to simulate the effects of gravity by using vacuum to suck the blood from our upper body down into our lower body, just like it would on Earth if you had gravity. We also use ultrasound in this experiment. Ultrasound devices uses sound waves to look at our hearts and the vessels in our necks, and allows us to see how the fluid and the blood flow changes as a result of living in microgravity for a long period of time.
Hi, I'm Ashley from 4th grade. How do you stay connected to your family and friends from the International Space Station?
Well, it's actually pretty easy on the International Space Station. It will be more challenging when we go to further destinations like Mars. But up here, we have programs on our laptop computers, much like you do on the ground. It functions a bit like Skype would. So we can use a program on our computer to call down to anybody's cell phone. So we could go right now and dial any of you up on this laptop. We also have some video conferencing software, kind of like a FaceTime or Skype again, that allows us to do that on video. So we have weekly family conferences with our loved ones on the ground so that we can not only hear their voices but also see their faces.
Hi, I'm Emma from 6th grade. What training did you receive to effectively work with a variety of different cultures and languages in space?
That's a great question, because one of the best things about the International Space Station is international cooperation between multiple countries, part of the program. And as we mentioned earlier, right now we have an Italian, 3 Americans, and 2 Russians on board. And so it's very important to understand each other's cultures. When we were selected as astronauts, we immediately began learning the Russian language, because on board the International Space Station we speak Russian or English. Those are the official languages, despite what your native language may be. And that's just one of many examples of how we try to come together in a common understanding but a mutual respect for one another. And it will be one of the greatest legacies of the International Space Station program is the international cooperation, something that we will carry forward with us into the Artemis program as we return to the surface of the moon by 2024.
Hi, I'm Michael from 7th grade. Was there a time you thought you could not complete a challenge, and how did you overcome that?
You know, there have been so many instances throughout the last 6 to 7 years since I was selected to become an astronaut where I was faced with something that at first I thought was an insurmountable challenge. From the training we first got, the day we walked through the door, through the flight training to get here, through all of the incredible and dynamic events that we get to do up here. So that included from the beginning, for me, learning how to be a pilot of a high-performance aircraft, all the way through flight training where I first started learning how to be a co-pilot in a Soyuz spaceship, and then up here doing several EVAs or spacewalks within the course of a mission. All those things at first seemed like they were impossible. It seemed like a mountain of things to do in front of me that I might never ever accomplish. And I think the trick is just taking it one chunk at a time, recognizing that step by step you can achieve these huge goals and very, very difficult challenges. It involves grit. It involves accepting failure sometimes, and it involves recognizing that you do have the strength to overcome the challenges no matter what they are. So I would say all of those challenges sort of put together really defined the last several years, probably for all of us. In fact, overcoming things that seemed at first like you couldn't is kind of the name of the game in astronaut training and in being on board the International Space Station. But that's what makes it so fulfilling and so meaningful.
Hi, I'm Electra from 1st grade. How do you know when to sleep and when to wake up in space?
Well, sleep is very important to me. It's one of my favorite things to do, down on the ground and up here. And we follow the same sort of schedules. Again, you know, it is interesting because we don't have the circadian rhythms of the sun. You know, we don't have the same number of hours of consistent light and darkness that we use for those cues on the ground. But we do try to maintain some of that. For example, with our lights, we have these newer light systems which have different intensities. So in the morning, we have what's called a phase shift, have a really bright light to wake us up. And then as we progress through the day, we decrease that intensity that simulates what the sunlight would be like on the ground. Otherwise, we use the same things you do on the ground. We use clocks, we use alarm clocks. I know I, for one, would never wake up on my own in time if it weren't for an alarm clock. So all the same practices you guys are using on the ground as well.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We've really enjoyed spending this time with you.
Thank you, the Fort Worth Academy. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes our event as we count down to 20 continuous years of humans living and working on the International Space Station.
Thank you to all the participants from Fort Worth Academy Station. We are now resuming operational audio communications.
Well, in my left hand I have a feather. In my right hand a hammer. And I guess one of the reasons we got here today was because of a gentleman named Galileo a long time ago who made a rather significant discovery about falling objects in gravity fields. And we thought that where would be a better place to confirm his findings than on the moon. And so we thought we'd try it here for you. The feather happens to be appropriately a falcon feather for our falcon. And I'll drop the two of them here, and hopefully they'll hit the ground at the same time. How about that?